Welcome to another episode of 22 at the Lips. I'm your podcast host, Alexis Hardwick, and I want to give a small little plug. Yes, Master Medics does sponsor this podcast. What they do not sponsor is me coming on here to say that I wholly support Master Medics and the vision of Jeff Murphy and the whole team and the educational opportunities that we have that people that started out in EMS did not have, whether it's through their social media, whether it's through their multitude of resources of if you're an FTO, 100 patient scenarios, if you're studying for the national registry, if you're looking for things to further your education, they have it all. Because at the core of what we do, it's one, for our patients, being more educated is not going to hurt anything. Also, as a provider, to be able to say, when you start and end every shift, I've done everything I could with the education I have and the resources given me. You have it all at your fingertips. Also, I'm not a huge proponent of merch. But these trucker hats, not really my style, but I will openly wear them. But also be self-conscious of what you do because when you wear merch, you're advertising what the brand sponsors and what they stand for. So keep that in mind. But very comfy hats. I'm not being asked to say any of that. I just want to throw that out there. Anyways, I saw this meme the other day, and it was a side by side comparison of the new EMTs, the fresh EMTs, the green ones, as we call them, who they had all of this equipment in their book sack, in their belt, and all this stuff. And then it was on the other side, it was a seasoned provider, quote unquote, seasoned, who had just bare minimum of like pins, a Sharpie, and I think that was it. And it brought me back to, and it can bring us all back. No matter how crusty or salty or burnout you are in this field, we can all remember when we first started out, how green we were, how new we were. And I remember all the things I used to carry. I used to, in my head, I thought I needed carabiners. I thought I needed a tourniquet. I had all of these little cheat sheet cards, all this kind of stuff, which I'm not knocking. Put a pin in that. The notebook that had like the layout of the documenting the patient, like writing down the patient's vital signs and their medications, history, which I'm also not knocking, but a lot of stuff that over the years I've started to just not carry. And what I carry now is very minimal, but it also made me realize no one sat me down and said, hey, this is what you should carry each shift. It was very much here's school, pass registry, start at your new agency, go through your orientation, and into the wild you are, which can already be unsettling. So, that feeling of not really knowing what to be prepared for outside of what you've been taught and you've been trained, but also, I don't know what I need. Um, so I wanted to point out what's really necessary. And I want to point out what being transparent, what I really need on a ship versus all the other things that I can either leave in my book sack or I can just not bring. It's not necessary, in my opinion. I do want to bring discussion because what I think is necessary or what I don't carry may be vital for somebody else, or maybe there's other things that are out there that I don't know about that I should carry. I don't know. This is why we're here to generate discussion. So, first and foremost, before I even start, what I consider to be the most important thing of what you should carry, your pen. And yes, as a medic, I do lose pens. I carry a plethora of extra ones in my book sack. I borrowed them from my partner, borrow from another provider on scene, from the firefighters, not the patients. That's theft. But I borrow a lot of pens. But I write everything down. And I also bring, this is literally what I keep. There are these tiny little notebooks. They're pocket size, which I need because otherwise it's going to fall out or I'm going to lose it somewhere. But they have these cute little pages. It looks like a composition notebook. It's so precious. They can also be taken out and shredded because HIPAA, but also sticky notes. This one's a little beat up, but this is what I carry because I write everything down. And if I don't write it down, it's going to get lost. I just being very blunt and honest, it's going to get lost. I write down when I have the time, when it's Granted, or I have somebody else write it down, patient's history, their what medications they're taking, what they're allergic to, and initial CBGs because it's little things that off the top of my head, I'm not going to remember. Now, granted, you can also write on your stretcher sheet, which is another reason why I highly recommend a Sharpie. You can also bring Sharpies for writing medication infused drips. You can write times on tourniquets. You can write on the stretcher sheet with this, and it very vividly pops up. X marks on pedal pulses. You can do a lot. So I'm a very big proponent of writing things down. I also fully believe that it's important to document exactly when you do what. Being fully transparent. If I'm a minute off of when I started an IV, it's bad documentation. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. However, if I'm a minute off from when I gave the last epi, that's not good. If the doctor asks me, "Hey, how long ago did you give that nitro?" and I look at them and I say, 5 minutes, 5 minutes versus 10 minutes can mean a big difference. So, very important to write things down. I also fully advertise and it doesn't have to be a tactical pin light, but a pin light of some sort. You can easily get one at the store for less than $5. They have the cute little centimeter markers. Even if it's great value, a pin light. Now, I also bring these because it is very dark in some patients' houses, very dark, and I can't see. You can also, it takes a little bit of finesse with it, but you can do the little tactic where you put it on the patient's skin and with precise eye and training, doesn't require extensive training, but a little bit of focus, you can find a patient's vein. Now, when you use this, you don't want to flash it in the patient's eye. You're not going to get a good pupil response if the lights are all bright and then you go to, do the light and you can't see anything because it's so bright. They're obviously going to be constricted. You got to use caution whenever you use these items, but I highly recommend it. Very highly recommend. The most obvious one of them all, a stethoscope. You don't have to go out and get the Littman for cardiology, the little Bluetooth attachment with the EKG properties. I did have one, the one that would like mute everything out and you can hear just the lung sounds. It was great until in a plethora of circumstances, I lost it in a patient's house and I didn't really have it in me to go to the family in the ER and be like, "Hey, I left my stethoscope at your mom's house. Can I go back and get it?" Wasn't the time. I cut my losses and it hurt because granted they're not cheap. We don't make bank in this field. But I reverted back to my Littman 3. It's not again, it's not cheap. However, it is an investment. Highly recommend it. It has the little thing where it rotates so you can listen to pediatric lung sounds, you can listen to bowel sounds, or your regular lung sounds. If you are new to this field and you're asking yourself, when am I ever going to listen to lung sounds? I work with a paramedic, or you're telling yourself, well, my partner never lets me do anything like that. You need to have a heart to heart with them because your name at the end of that call is also going on that report. And also, if you don't, what my one of my old partners told me, if you don't know what a normal lung sound sounds like, how are you going to know what's abnormal? How are you going to know what's different? You should be listening to lung sounds on every patient. Worst case, it makes you look a little busy for about 5 seconds and it kind of calms the patient down just a little bit. That's just me. Um, I highly recommend stethoscopes. You should have it. Your agency should provide you with one. Maybe they do, and it's that great value brand one. They still work in a jiffy. I wear mine around my neck. I know the dangers of it. I know with our psychiatric patients or our combative patients or Meemaw who won't keep the SpO2 probe on her finger, let alone she's reaching out for everything. There's no telling what's under her fingernails. Let's just be honest. If it's not around my stethoscope or I take it off, it goes immediately to the back of the stretcher. I have almost lost too many stethoscopes Thankfully, my partner keeps a mindful eye to look out for it. Throw it on the back of the stretcher or shove it into one of the pockets of your monitor, whatever you got to do. Back to if your partner won't let you listen to long sounds, talk to them. They don't, you don't have to be the first one if they're not comfortable with it. You don't have to be the first one to listen, but at least get your own assessment because it's your patient too. When it comes down to it, it's your patient too. Another very important thing I keep on me, and I think everyone should, is a pair of shears. They don't have to be Raptors. I highly recommend Raptors. For my paramedic, congratulations, you passed, you're certified. I customized mine specifically with the purpose of it's a little cheesy, it's a little much, but I know that they're mine and nobody's going to steal them. Another thing with your stethoscope, with your shears, with these larger priced items that are an investment, I would highly recommend writing your name on them because, and it's not everybody, it's not all your coworkers. Sometimes you misplace things, it happens, but sometimes they walk away and it hurts. I recommend Raptors. This is just me. I'm not being endorsed to say any of this with Littman, with Leatherman Raptors, any of that, but this is just from my experience. I like that I can clip them into a pocket. I don't like wearing them on my belt. That's just me. Do you, boo? They have the O2 wrench, they have the seatbelt cutter, and everything that I'm saying I have used more than a handful of times. Obviously, they're shears. Yes, it's cheesy, but I did it that way on purpose. They have the ring cutter option. They have the centimeter marker, and it's very helpful for when you're calling a report and you say, "Yeah, it's a there's a big difference between it's a little lack and it's a 4 centimeter long lack. Little difference." Um, that's just me. On our badges at work, we have, and these are one of the cheat sheets that I highly recommend everyone bringing. The at a glance Glasgow coma scale. We have the burn percentage marker because you learn it in paramedic school. I'm going to be quite frank. I can't tell you off the top of my head. I know the basics, but when you go from an adult to a child to an infant, things get a little scary. I also keep this, it's called an RCAT, Rapid Cardiac Analysis Tool. I need to get another one. It's a little banged up. I've almost had it for 3 years, but you can put this as a baseline marker on your 12 lead and you can easily be able to tell how much ST elevation there is. You can match R to R intervals. You can measure the QRS. And this is just me. It gives you a quick at a glance, if you can see it. It gives you a quick little at a glance where the elevation is or the deviation, if there's ST depression, where it is and what it correlates to, if it's a lateral, septal, inferior, whatever it is. I've also personally, I went to a talk about axis deviations and it scared me a lot in the best way possible to learn more, be better. I have written on a sticky note which in leads 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which axis deviations mean what. That's just me. I keep these in my book sack. I thankfully barely, don't want to jinx myself, barely have to take them out, but a Broslow tape. I have acquired one and I'm never letting it go. The agency I work for, we get the Broslow out, measure the child, infant, whomever, and we use that color for on a quick sheet. We go to that color, find the medication dosage, and go from there, which is very easy. But depending on the agency you work for, in the Broslow, there's already medication dosages in there. And it also has the size, NPA, OPA, what size tube to use, et cetera, et cetera. What normal vital signs look like for that specific age range. Because again, I know it, but in the heat of the moment, there are a couple of things that just my brain is just a little overwhelmed. If I can just see it right then and there, it takes up a little bit less headspace so I can focus on more important things. I, by chance, acquired on my own accord a neonatal pediatric wheel. If you're not watching this, it's going to be a little hard to see, but so be it. It gives you for our neonatals and our newborns and the ones that just don't quite reach the measuring color on the pediatric Broslow tape. It gives you very specific, whether it's your laryngoscope blade to use, whether it's the ET tube to use, it's the all of these things. It has the APGAR score on it. It has targeted O2 sats for after birth and whatnot. It also gives you specific dosages for medications. It gives you so much. It is so much. It's a little more critical care in some aspects than what we use in the field. But if I need it, I have it. I don't have to freak out because my kiddo doesn't match anything on the Broslow tape because they're so tiny. I don't have to freak out because I don't know what to do. It's all right there. And I'm a huge proponent of, if you don't know, go back to your basics, call for help. That's why you have a doc in a box. That's why you have online medical control. Never don't do something because you don't know. Ask for help. In my opinion, the Broslow tape, the pediatric wheel, writing things down, that's my way of, I can control this thing. I know what to do in this moment. If I need further help, I'll already be a step ahead than I was before. Another thing that you should bring on shift, that I bring every shift, I keep it in my book sack, in the truck. I don't take it in calls with me, obviously, but snacks, food, gum, because when you got to get up close and personal in somebody's face, not in a bad way, but you got to assess pupils, you got to listen to lung sounds. Nobody wants to smell your nasty breath. And I learned the hard way very early on in my career. After I reached across a patient to reach into a cabinet, I should bring deodorant on shifts. Um, yeah, I reapply almost every single shift, depending on how cold it is and whatnot. I've also worked too many hot summers not to. And I'll joke with my partner and reapply and look at her and be like, oh, you're all welcome. I bring body spray just because for me personally, I don't want it to be overwhelming because you don't know what your patient's allergic to. But I don't want to be that provider that smells like BO. We can all think of one instance when we've known somebody that we've worked with that just doesn't have great hygiene. And it doesn't take 5 seconds, just on the way to the call, you chew your gum, spit it out, easy peasy. Food, snacks, water, no, energy drink and coffee does not count as a water substitute. We need to stay hydrated. But also, I do bring or I get either coffee or an energy drink, or sometimes both during the shift because my body can't keep up with the energy. I mean, it's a quick little synopsis, quick little, this is what I bring, this is what I recommend, this is what I tell people. Um, there are other things that you may not need to bring, like a watch. We all have timers, we all have countdowns, we're all able to tell the time on our phone, but still, it doesn't hurt to just very quickly, for me, I wear mine on my right hand because I'm right hand dominated. I'm right hand dominant. But if I'm starting an IV, I can just quickly get it, check the time, done. Or if I'm pushing a medication, check the time, done. Again, documentation. A phone charger, anything else really, I feel like is kind of lanyard depending on the area you work in. If you're rural, if you're urban, whatever it may be. And there are so many other things that people do carry that I don't see necessary, but I would love to know the rationale. And it's not just EMS, it's fire, it's police, it's everybody. I personally have found that the less I carry, the less I need. And I would rather have less on my persons and less I got to deal with of taking out of my pockets than having just all this stuff I don't use and I don't need, not spending a plethora of money that I just don't have to spend on this stuff. But that's just me. These are things that I've learned throughout my time in this field. We are currently almost at the 4-year marker, which is wild. It doesn't feel like 4 years. And some days, some shifts, it feels like it's been 2 years. Some shifts, it feels like it's been 10 years, but name of the game. But that's what I carry. I would love to know what everyone else does, what other people do, why you justify carrying some things other than things I carry, why you justify carrying more things than what I bring on my persons. So leave a comment, let me know, give me your honest opinions. Looking for discussion. Just that's all it is. But that's all I got. Yeah, I've significantly decreased the number of things I carry on my person. I don't see the need for tape uh on my shears or on my belt loop. That's just me. There's so many other things. If there's anything that you see that people carry that you just don't deem necessary, drop it in a comment. Maybe some other people use it and we don't know why, but they have a reason. Whatever it is. But that is all I got. Just wanted to drop in a quick little tidbit. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, send me a DM, leave a comment on this video. Do what you got to do. Let me know what you carry. Let me know what you don't carry. Let me know what you'll never carry again. And yeah, as I end every single episode. So with that.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.